Not much is known about the early life of Irenaeus. He was born probably somewhere in what is modern-day Turkey, very likely in Smyrna, a thriving Catholic merchant city, perhaps around the year AD 130. Irenaeus recalls learning at the feet of St. Polycarp, who was a disciple of St. John the Evangelist. Somehow Irenaeus made his way to the city of Lyons, in modern-day France, where he was ordained a priest. Sent on a mission to Pope Eleutherius in Rome concerning heresy in Lyons, he was not present during the persecution of Catholics in Lyons by the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. During this persecution, the first bishop of Lyons, Pothinus, was martyred around the year 177. On his return, Irenaeus was chosen as the second bishop of Lyons. During this time, he wrote 5 volumes against heresies, defending the church against the Gnostics. Irenaeus is considered to be a martyr who died about the year 202. He has been named a Doctor of the Church by Pope Francis in January 2022.
We do this, I say, by indicating that tradition derived from the apostles, of the very great, the very ancient, and universally known church founded and organized at Rome, by the 2 most glorious apostles, Peter and Paul, as also means of the successions of the bishops. For it is a matter of necessity, that every church should agree with this church, on account of its preeminent authority. Against Heresies, Book 3 Chapter 3.2. And just as a cutting from the vine planted in the ground fructifies, in its season, or as a corn of wheat falling into the earth and becoming decomposed, rises with manifold increase, by the Spirit of God who contains all things, and then, through the wisdom of God, serves for the use of men, and having received the word of God, becomes the Eucharist, which is the body and blood of Christ. So also our bodies, being nourished by it, and deposited in the earth, and suffering decomposition there, shall rise at their appointed time, the word of God granting them resurrection to the glory of God. Against Heresies, Book 5, Chapter 2.3. For how stands the case? Suppose there arise a dispute, relative to some important question among us, should we not have recourse to the most ancient churches, with which the apostles held constant intercourse, and learn from them what is certain and clear, in regard to the present question? For how should it be, if the apostles themselves had not left us writings? Would it not be necessary, in that case, to follow the course of the tradition which they handed down, to those to whom they did commit the churches? Against Heresies, Book 3, Chapter 4.1. If then, it were not in our power, to do or not to do these things, what reason had the apostle, and, much more the Lord himself, to give us counsel to do some things, and to abstain from others? But because man is possessed of free will from the beginning, and God is possessed of free will, in whose likeness man was created, advice is always given to him to keep fast the good, which thing is done by means of obedience to God. And not merely in works, but also in faith, has God preserved the will of man free, and under his own control, saying, according to your faith be it done unto you. Thus showing that there is a faith specially belonging to man, since he has an opinion specially his own. Against Heresies, Book 4, Chapter 37.4. That the Lord himself was making a recapitulation of that disobedience, which had occurred in connection with the tree, through the obedience which was exhibited by himself when he hung upon a tree. The effects also of that deception, being done away with, by which that Virgin Eve, who was already espoused to a man, was unhappily misled, was then happily announced through means of the truth spoken by the angel, to the Virgin Mary, who was also espoused to a man. For just as the former was led astray by the word of an angel, so that she fled from God, when she had transgressed his word, so did the latter, by an angelic communication, receive the glad tidings that she should carry God, being obedient to his word. And if the former disobeyed God, the latter was persuaded to be obedient to God, in order that the Virgin Mary might become the patroness of the Virgin Eve. And thus, as the human race fell into bondage to death, by means of a virgin, so is it rescued by a virgin. Virginal disobedience having been balanced in the opposite scale by virginal obedience. Against Heresies, Book 5, Chapter 19.1. Unless it had been God, who had freely given salvation, we could never have possessed it securely. And unless man had been joined to God, he could never have become a partaker of incorruptibility. For it was incumbent upon the mediator, between God and men, by his relationship to both, to bring both to friendship and concord, and present man to God, while he revealed God to man. For, in what way could we be partaken of the adoption of sons, unless we had received from him, through the Son, that fellowship which refers to himself? Unless his word, having been made flesh, had entered into communion with us. Wherefore also, he passed through every stage of life, restoring to all, communion with God. Against Heresies, Book 3, Chapter 18.7.